This is a treat for me because this was one of the first products that I ever reviewed. Not this one. We're now 2 generations later. What are we talking about? This is the Topping D50. Little tiny DAC, lots of functionality. We're going to compare it to the SE1, which is my budget DAC of choice. We're going to compare it to a Jashelli Labs J2, and we're going to compare it to $1,000 of SMSL's SUX, or as I like to call it, the SMSL sucks. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about the Topping D50 Let's run through some specs real quick. There's a whole bunch of them. This thing measures perfectly. It gets a Pink Panther award over at ASR, which is great for the Topping D53. Will it get the coveted Cheap Audio Man Garbage Pail Kid award? Let's find out. This is how big it is compared to a cell phone, compared to a pen. A Ridge pen, which incidentally, these Ridge pens are really good. This video is not sponsored by Ridge, but Ridge has sponsored a bunch of videos, and I like Ridge. This is how big it is compared to a Metallica guitar pick. Most importantly of all, this is how big it is compared to the SMSL SU1. Again, my budget DAC of choice. This comes in at $70 or $80, depending if it's on sale or not. This, the Topping D53, comes in around $230. I'm no mathematician, but I think that's 3 times the cost of the SMSL SU1. On the back, it's fairly straightforward. You have balanced outputs in the form of TRS cables, connections. TRS, they look like this. Been used in pro audio for a long time, so if you want to run balance, you're going to need to get a pair of TRS cables. You also have single-ended outputs. You get a left and a right, a white one and a red connection. For inputs, you have a coaxial in, you have an optical in, and you have a USB-C input. You also have to run this off of a USB power connection. So this is a 5-volt powered device, which I like because it gives you an option. That option is running this off of a power bank, battery powered. Some people think that if you run stuff off of batteries, you lower the noise associated with some cheap 5-volt power bricks. This is a 5-volt power brick. You probably have a whole bunch of 5-volt power bricks around for your cellular telephones or your iPad. I don't believe this came with one, so you either have to provide your own or go buy one. But with a 5-volt DAC, you can play around with battery supply, which may or may not impact the sonic characteristics of the D53 from Topping. On the front, you have a laughably small display. However, it is usable. Other cool thing about this product, comes with a remote control, which means this has a variable output. Variable output means that you can control volume from a remote control or locally on the unit itself with this handy dandy little joystick. Bunch of settings in here, including EQ settings, which you can download into this unit via an app called Topping Tune, only if you have a Windows machine, because I could not find the download for Topping Tune for a Macintosh machine, which means I can't use the EQ settings. Many people use Macintosh computers, and I think it would behoove Topping if they had a program that would work with Macintosh computers so that people could unleash the full capabilities of the Topping D50 if you use a Macintosh, like I do. I do have some Windows machines, so if I really wanted to, I could do it, but I don't really want to, so I'm not. There's also a bunch of filter roll-off settings that you can change in this unit. 7, I think, to be exact. I lied to you. There's 8. Are you ready for them? Here we go. Minimum phase. That's mode 1. That's default. Linear phase fast roll-off apodizing. That's 2. Linear phase fast roll-off. That's 3. That's if you don't want the apodizing. Linear phase fast roll-off low ripple. If you don't want high ripple, you want the low ripple. Linear phase slow roll-off. Minimum phase fast roll-off. That's if you don't want maximum phase fast roll-off. Minimum phase slow roll-off. And then minimum phase slow roll-off low dispersion. I find personally, they don't really make that big of a difference. What would make a difference though is having 10 different EQ settings that I could use. Depending upon which type of headphone or speaker I was using, that would be really convenient. Except it doesn't work on a Macintosh. Sound comparison. The first one, the SMSL SU1, has a 4493 AKM DAC chip in it, and then whatever else they did to it. The Topping D50 has a pair of Saber 9039 Q2Ms. One for the left channel, and another for the right channel, which delivers higher signal to noise ratio, higher dynamic range, and lower distortion than the D50S. We'll get this out of the way. Sounds good. Sounds real nice. Compared to the SU1, the thing that jumps off the page for me, and remember, I'm lazy when it comes to making videos, so I left the D53 in default mode. I don't like all the different choices, so if you do get this device, remember, there will be more options. And if you're using any of my videos to make a purchasing decision, you may want to rethink your life. Just kidding. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate everybody watching. So, listen to Hello Nasty by the Beastie Boys. I'm addicted to that album lately. It's awesome. The thing that jumps off the page for me initially, and I think anybody that was doing their own comparison would be able to hear that the SU1 a little bit spicier in the upper mid-range, a little bit spicier in the treble, had a little bit less of a natural sound. And this, the SU1, is a very good DAC. Frankly, I think the SU1 sounds a lot better than SMSL's more expensive options, still utilizing the 4493 chipset from AKM. So the Topping, easiest way I can describe it compared to the SU1, has a more analog vibe. Very balanced, very clean. SU1 also has a lot of dynamics, but with those dynamics come a little bit of smearing on the bass, on the bottom, where the D3 was very articulate with the bass, still punchy, still powerful on the bass. More balanced top ends, more believable top end. Timbre was better. Is it 3 times better than the SU1? Probably. Yes, actually it is. Not saying the SU1 is bad. I think the D53 is much better. How did I listen to these? Well, thank you for asking. I actually listened to them through the A53, which is a headphone amplifier. A little tiny one that matches the same dimensions as the D53. I also listened to it on speakers via the ZA3. Playing through the Emotiva XB2s. Headphones I was listening to are the Verum 2s. I love these headphones. They did a Kickstarter for those headphones. Anyway, they sound awesome. Completely my sound. Clean, punchy on the bottom, so much clarity on top. When I'm trying to hear the differences between DACs or really any type of sources, I generally go with a product as far as headphones or speakers that has a lot of clarity so that I can hear those differences. Gishelli Labs J2 DAC comes in, the one that I have comes in around $250. So there's not a huge differential in price between the D53 and the J2 if you're getting the non-socketed version and you don't get a USB. The one I compared it to has the Sabre 9026 Pro in it. The differences between the J2 and the A53 is the A53 seemed a little bit more dynamic on the bottom when it came to headphones. On speakers, I didn't hear it quite as much, but the soundstage and imaging as far as a three-dimensional space was better on the J2 than it was on the A53. A53 just kind of feels like it's a bit of a wall of sound on speakers. On headphones, you can't really hear that as much. Throughout the mid-range, I felt like the J2 was doing a better job of vocal nuances, and in comparison I felt like the D53 was a little bit more laid back. Not bad in any way. If anything, it reminds me a little bit of the Denafrips Aries 12. So how does the D53 do against the $1,000 SMSL sucks? I mean SMSL X. Personally, I would choose the D53 every day of the week and twice on Sunday over the SMSL SUX, but I would choose just about any DAC every day of the week over the SMSL SUX. I get what the SUX is trying to do, and it is okay when it comes to some detail stuff, but it's so harsh on top. D53, much more organic sounding. DACs are a funny thing because you can get some really affordable DACs like the SU1, which sound great. And just because you're scaling up in price does not mean you're going to have a direct improvement upon the performance of the products. A lot of times, less expensive DACs to me sound better. Final thoughts on the D50 Mark III from Topping. I love it. I think it's absolutely great. If you need something in a small form factor, I think the D53 should be on your short list. If your budget is a little bit more than the SU1, if you have $230, I think you should look hard at the D53, especially if you need variable output or if you need volume control, because you can take the D53 and you can take something like the Fozzy Audio ZA3, and if you don't need any type of analog inputs, you're done. You can put something like the Weem Mini for $80. You can put it right on top to the Topping. You can optical into the Topping D53, analog into the ZA3, hook up your speakers, and be done. The things I love about the D53, even on default mode, is it's dynamic, it's clean, it is beaten by the J2 at a similar price point when it comes to soundstage and imaging. I especially think the $44.93 version of the J2 is going to sound more similar to the D53 as far as dynamics, bass control, bass amount. But there's a lot more options. If you're a Windows user, you can start playing around with a bunch of those different EQ settings. But if you have something like the Weem Mini hooked up to it, you don't need to worry, because through the Weem app, you can have an EQ, 10-band EQ, or a parametric EQ. I don't really do a ton of reviews on headphone amps anymore, but the A53 is also a very good headphone amp. This whole stack together will come in around $430. And if you're tight on space, it's a fantastic little headphone stack. The D53 also comes with Bluetooth, LDAC Bluetooth. I've always wondered why. If you have this on a 2-channel system, I get it. But you're gonna have to get out a pair of binoculars to be able to see what the screen says if you're using Bluetooth across the room. I think it's a spectacular little product. It's probably gonna be my recommendation outside of the J2 around that $250 and less mark. If you don't need volume control, I'd probably get the J2, the AKM 4493 version, the socketed version, because then you can upgrade the op amps later. If you need variable volume control and you're doing all digital inputs, then the D50 Mark III. It's a great choice. If you liked this video and you're looking for the ultimate DAC, you need to check out this video on the Gishelli Labs Daisy. I will link it here or here. If you're new here, consider subscribing. Also want to thank my patrons. If you want to be part of the best hi-fi community out there, sign up for my Patreon. We have a Discord server. We have a Facebook group. We do Zoom meetings. We had one last night, and it really helps out the channel. If you're not subscribed, I hope I earned your subscription. Give this video a like if you liked it, and thank you so much for watching.